recording. All right, cool. So, all right, so we are officially recording this Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. Well, uh, I am super excited and happy to be here with Kyle Little tonight. He is one of the candidates in basically the most contested congressional race we have in New Jersey this year,
Mhm.
and that's CD 12. And
Yeah,
so I'll let Kyle kind of tell you more about geographically where his district is, but I know it covers parts of Edison and New Brunswick in particular. It's kind of right there in the heart of central Jersey. And I am just happy to have a great conversation tonight with Kyle Little.
yeah. Actually, it doesn't cover Edison or New Brunswick. Actually, it's literally right outside of that area. So it does cover a large portion of Middlesex County, though. But Middlesex County is actually split between CD 12 and CD 6.
Okay. I think I was thinking of CD 6 then.
Yeah, because CD 6 has New Brunswick and Edison, um, which is interesting because I'm a business owner in Middlesex County,
Okay.
and but my business locations are in Edison and Metuchen. So both of my
Mm,
business locations are in CD 6, but I live in North Brunswick, which is CD 12.
okay.
So so it's funny the way that congressional districts, they're all gerrymandered, and
Yes.
um literally CD 12 has all of the Brunswicks except New Brunswick. So
Okay.
North Brunswick, South Brunswick, and East Brunswick are all in my district, CD 12, but New Brunswick is in CD 6. So CD 6 has like the northern part of Middlesex County, and CD 12 has like the southern part of Middlesex County.
And now for you in particular, um, you were the first candidate in this race, and even now, I saw the video of you. I just remember it, you being in the tan suit and you telling everyone not to lie in God's house up there. And there's
Absolutely.
10 of you up on the stage. So what made you decide to get in this race, especially against Bonnie Watson Coleman at the time, a longtime member of Congress?
Yeah. Well, I decided to get in because in a nutshell, Donald Trump got elected. Um uh and this man is nothing but someone who's trying to get rich by taking away all of our human and constitutional rights.
Hmm.
So like whether you're a person of color or whether you're a woman or an immigrant or LGBTQ, like no matter what, if you're trying to become educated or if you're an educator, I mean, he's trying to take people's health care away. So it's like, he's literally
If,
trying to,
if you're poor, right? Basically,
yeah,
99% of us.
yeah, exactly. Like, so that's why I got in the race. I've always told people like if Kamala, people have always told me like Kyle, you should get into politics because you're very outspoken. Like you're firm in your beliefs and your values. But I feel like had Kamala Harris got won the presidency, I would have been a little more lax about it.
Mm.
Once I knew that Donald Trump, won the presidency, I was sick. Don't get me wrong, I was sick to my stomach that night. I wanted to throw up. But I was just like, you know what? F this. I called my best friend a few days later and I was like, you know what? I'm running now. I was like, because being a black homosexual male, there's no way that I can just let my rights and the rights of the people that I love and care about be taken away, you know, by this,
Yeah.
but by like these bigots that are literally like, not only Donald Trump, but like these MAGA Republicans that are at his aid, um, at every chance that they get. So I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm in it for the fight, and I've always felt like even though I'm a Democrat and I've always voted Democrat. The party isn't fighting enough for the communities that technically always vote for them.
Right. Which I think is, we're kind of seeing this wave across the country now of that disconnect, right? I mean, I get annoyed every time I see it. Maybe every few months you'll see like an article in like the New York Times or the press, and they'll essentially ask, if the Democrats are trying to be too progressive, but I think it's the opposite. They're not delivering on universal health care, which is a very
Exactly.
popular thing. Even with Republicans feel that people shouldn't be going bankrupt or dying because they don't have health care coverage. They're not delivering on child care. They're not delivering on affordability. They're not delivering on stopping these kind of forever wars. If anything, we're seeing expanded. And so
Yeah.
that's what I think is hurting the Democratic Party. And I think us progressives are really fighting for its soul.
Yeah, and I think that it just comes down to messaging as well. Like, like I also will say like certain things like this. Like people will always say, well, the Democrats don't do anything for black people, right? Like you'll hear like a lot of black people say that. The Democrats don't do anything for black people. Well, prime example, Joe Biden gave $16 billion to HBCUs. The more than any other president in history did. Now, why didn't people know that? Why weren't Joe Biden and Kamala Harris out there standing at I had that been me in my administration, I would have been standing out there outside of every Howard University. Oh, I just gave $50 million to Howard University. Spelman University. I just gave such as I would have been standing there with a big check advertising myself. Because one thing about Donald Trump advertises himself for bullshit that he doesn't even do. So like
Yes.
stuff that he doesn't
Well,
even do, he'll take credit for it. So
and for this one though, I feel like, and I'm sure you've seen this too. They'll say all the time that it's black men that are like going more for Donald Trump than ever. But I mean, if you there isn't a more cohesive voting bloc in this country than black people. I'm pretty sure Trump has won essentially every other group.
yeah, exactly. Like even I got so frustrated at this last election because they were like black and Latino men, and I'm like, no, don't lump us in together because literally 55% of Latino men voted for Trump. So like the majority of them voted for Trump. You know,
Right. Where it's like 85, 88% of black men voted for Harris. So,
yeah. So I'm like, like you can't compare the two. Now, like, am I, pissed off at the black men who did vote for Trump? Yeah, but but it was a lot of rhetoric and a lot of nonsense that and I've always felt like as a black man, like we were always seen as very transactional. Like, why is like so much of the focus on us? Because no
mhm.
matter what, you nobody's ever talking about the amount of white people that voted for Trump.
Right,
You know what I
exactly. I
mean?
mean, and us as black people, right? We're 15% of the population to try to but I mean, this is just the legacy of racism that we have in our country, right? We're always at the center of the blame of the negative of whatever story is
Exactly,
out there,
exactly.
right? I mean, I remember, I mean, and this is a horribly tragic story of that young woman who got stabbed on the train. Um, right? And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
yes, it was in this particular case a black assailant, but this is also just not how violent crime in general even works in our country. It's not random people jumping out of the bushes to attack you, especially not random black people. Us as black people are more likely to be victims, to be preyed on than we are to hurt others.
yeah, exactly.
And most people in general, right? It's intimate partners, family members, coworkers, and friends, right? This
Yeah,
is where violence often comes from. Yet they love to push this narrative in the media of it being like stranger violence.
yeah. And like I mean, you and I know, like as black men, everybody around us is black. Like our families, like are black. So I grew up in the black church. I'm in a frat, like in the NPAC frat. I've always been like a member of the NAACP. So I have grown up and lived my whole life around other black people, and I'm still perfectly fine. So like that this notion out there that black people are just like out here killing each other, are just violent human beings, and it's like it's nonsense and it's bullshit, and you know, 90% of mass shootings are done by white men. So I'm just like,
Well, and I mean, it's for everyone. We live in a very segregated society, right?
yeah,
So people, just like I was mentioning earlier, the good things happen to the people around you, and the bad things are going to happen to the people around you.
around you. Exactly, exactly.
So these notions of black on black crime and things are just very silly, and they're just not true. They're not proven out by the data. But this brings me to kind of another question that I actually really wanted to talk to you about. So I'm sure you've been seeing these stories of the warehouse fires, and these kind of incidences that we're seeing of basically people engaging in this, saying, "Hey, we are not being paid a living wage," and then taking actions into their own hands. And I, at least for me, right, I think getting involved in our political system, this is the best way. This is what we need to do to make the change that we need to see. But it's certainly violent to not pay people a fair wage, for these
Yeah,
billionaires to be taking all the gains from our society.
absolutely, and that's why I support a $20 minimum wage. You know, like
Mm,
especially living here in New Jersey. You know, like living here in
mhm.
New Jersey, you can't even. It's so crazy because when my husband and I, we were first, before we were married, and we were looking for our apartment. This was 10 years ago, 2016. We were able to get a. Actually, we had a two-bedroom. I want to say and we got it for like 1,300.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Nowadays you can't even get a one-bedroom for in New Jersey for less than 2 grand a month,
Right.
and which is insane. And I'm like, who can afford that? Like, people cannot afford that. And if they can't afford that, they can't afford to do anything else.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, which we it's just a product of kind of both wage suppression on one end, and then also we got to get our wealthiest Americans paying some taxes, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And here's another thing. I was going to I just didn't have time today, but I was going to do a video on Elon Musk, right? Elon
Mm.
Musk alone, his net worth is over $800 billion right now.
Oh, wow.
So I said, I'm a big numbers person, right? So I was like, well,
Hmm.
there's 760,000 residents living in New Jersey's 12th congressional district. I said, what would happen if Elon Musk gave every single person in our district, now this is every person in our district, $500,000? It said that that man would still have $420 billion to his net worth. So when you really think about that type of money, and Democrats have always just said tax the rich, but they haven't given. And this is what I keep talking about with messaging. They haven't given any real data or real statistics like I just gave. Like break that down. That is sick. For Elon Musk is one person. For and we have Meanwhile we have people like Trenton is in my district. In Trenton that are on the streets homeless, people who are losing their SNAP benefits, and people who are just like losing their health care,
Yes.
and one person is almost a trillionaire. Like that's sick. It should be a sin. It
Well,
should be a sin for
and
somebody
the
like that.
companies too, right? The companies have these tax loopholes. I think even just closing the loopholes for these guys, getting them to pay taxes at the rates that we currently have
Absolutely.
will drastically, basically allow us to be able to afford the things we need to do as a society, right?
Yeah, and
Healthcare, education.
absolutely, and that's why, like, that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up because me as a small business owner, I see it firsthand. Like because small business owners, we have to pay the employer taxes and the employee taxes. So we have to pay like that 15%. You know, when you have these large corporations that are like, you talk about FedEx or Target, or like these large corporations that are paying like less than 8%, and I'm like, they should be taxed at 15 to 20%. That is fair.
Right, right. But it's like it's actually it's totally backwards, right? Our tax system is supposed to be progressive. So the more money you make, right, the higher percentage you pay in taxes. But
Exactly.
unfortunately, our system is totally broken. because once you kind of get above a few $100,000 a year, these guys just and people take advantage of these loopholes and end up paying almost nothing.
But see,
Sometimes as low as 3%, or even Trump is very famous for somehow making hundreds of millions and paying no taxes at all.
exactly. But you know what it is though? It's I kind of in a way I blame us. I blame us, and not us, but I blame the voters, the people who vote, because it's not like this was not, I mean, Kamala Harris even said this. She said he's going to give tax cuts to all his rich billionaire friends. And people vote based on their hate. Like I can't even tell you how many people voted because immigrants are coming here and stealing our jobs.
Well,
Um
I mean, that's just scapegoating, right? Especially when it comes to jobs. This is the only scenario in which people say stealing jobs. In every other scenario, people are like, "Oh, I got a job." They clearly understand the jobs belong to the owners, to the managers, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
yet, when it comes to the most vulnerable people in our society, all of a sudden they have the power to steal jobs, and
Exactly,
it makes no
exactly.
sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but like people literally voted on that. Like I can't even tell you, like I mean, you probably saw them, like the ads that were running, and they were saying, oh, well, Harris is for they them, blaming the trans community for everything. And I've had people even tell me, oh, well, what do you think about men and women's bathrooms, men? And I'm like, all right, you tell me a time where you went into a public bathroom and you've always seen somebody from a different gender in the wrong bathroom. Like
Right.
it's just like,
And I mean, for you in general, I think this will like really resonate. They used to say these same attacks that they're using against the trans community now. 20 years ago, they were saying about the gay community, saying right that gay men will be attacking people in bathrooms,
yeah,
and
yeah,
lesbians will be attacking women. Like it's fear mongering,
fear mongering, yeah,
and whether it be homophobia or transphobia, we need to call this stuff out every time
yeah,
we see it.
yeah, absolutely. And that's what, like, like us progressives, we really need to call out, because I'm like, you tell me when a gay person has taken away your health care, or gay people are the ones over here snatching your family members up by ICE and deporting them. Like, you tell
Right.
me who how who how somebody is in their bedroom with another person, how that affects your life, how that has any effect on your life whatsoever. You
But
know?
it's really it's part of a very kind of almost sophisticated movement to divide us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think that's one of the scary things about the culture war is that they get us focused on these issues, like you're saying about the bathroom that has literally like
nothing to do
it's
with
not
anything.
hurting anyone.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe they'll pull out some like stray one in a million type random story, right? And then
yeah,
provoke
and
this
use it.
fear. And then it gets people totally forgetting about the fact that, hey, we need healthcare, right? We need education. We need to make sure that we can afford quality places to live and all these other basic things that we are united on or should
Yeah,
be.
yeah, and the thing is, like, this is the elites, the wealthy. They have always found a way to divide and conquer. Like, this is nothing new. Like,
Mhm.
let's just talk about like slavery, right? You had poor whites who did not own slaves in the South fighting with the Confederacy to keep black people enslaved. You
Mhm.
know, meanwhile, the elites were just finding a way to divide and conquer, finding a way to divide and conquer, like, the whole time. Meanwhile, the wealthy are still, so like this is nothing new. They've always tried to divide and conquer us. And if people could just realize that we all want the same thing, we all want health care. We all want a good quality of life. We all want to be able to, own a home, and, give our kids a good life, and give our kids education. And, like, we all want the same things for ourselves. We all just want to live comfortably. But, for whatever reason, we continue as a society to let these elites just, divide us and then we all end up like fucking ourselves over. That's the bottom line.
Now, I will say on the positive front, I think we are seeing a wave of people that are really starting to wake up to this, right? I mean, our kind of progressive movement. I'm always inspired, right? We've got candidates across the state now, right? We
Yeah.
got you, right? I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
running earlier this year. You know, we just saw kind of Mamdani's win, and I mean,
Mhm.
I was happily surprised when he announced on tax day that they were taxing the rich
Yeah. Yeah.
in New
Yeah.
York
Yeah.
City,
Exactly. Exactly.
which is one of the first kind of successful wealth taxes that we've seen, which is progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that there is hope. Yes, that division is there, but at the same time, I think we are coming together. People are waking up to kind of our common, the 99% of us, really do want those same things,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that progressive policies are popular, and we can
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah, and I think and it was inspiring because not only myself, like I just felt like it was I not felt like, but I knew it was like this movement. Like this has been like I was challenging, of course, I was challenging Bonnie Watson Coleman, an incumbent, but it wasn't only me. It was like this. This is the first most historic year since 1974 where incumbents have been challenged like this. And in my case, and Bonnie's a great incumbent. Like she's a great leader for our district and everything like that. So it wasn't so there's a lot of other incumbents across the country who really need to go. And actually, I would say I'm kind of mad that some of these incumbents that are in our state right now are not being challenged in getting out of here.
Yeah, well,
But
I mean, I'm sure you've also seen some of this too, right? The system is designed to protect them. So,
absolutely.
there's pushback when you step up to challenge them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I think I told you before. When I first got into the race, um, I emailed every Democratic mayor in my district. And
Hmm.
of course I didn't. And it's not like I was trying to get like an endorsement or anything like that. I was just trying to say, oh, well, can I, meet the people in your community?
Right.
You think I ever got a reply back from any one of them? I got no reply back. And now the system is trying to work because now two of those mayors are now, once Bonnie retired, two of them, and I'm talking about Matt and Brad Cohen, two people who
Okay, are in the
are
race.
in the race. Yeah. So it's just like, forgive me for having a bitter taste in my mouth about both of those candidates. But that's the system though. Like it is what it is. They don't want change. And again, like, I've always had respect for Bonnie Watson Coleman, but it was like it's time for a change. Like I I
Yes.
I, I could love you and have respect for you, but it was still time for a change.
So now, would you support term limits in
Oh,
Congress?
I already do. So yeah, brother. Like you haven't seen. I've already endorsed my term limits. That's on my page going back to 2025.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm basically for all, pretty much all of the major democratic reforms. I think making our system more responsive to people, to ordinary
Yeah,
people is what we want. Especially let's get the money out of politics, right?
let's get the
Let's
money. Absolutely, absolutely. And like, all right, and I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, like I got like a 10-year thing. Like I already like this shit is aggravating now. So it's like when I get into Congress, I'm not trying to be in there forever. I do not want to like it drives me crazy when people are dying in office. Like that
Mhm.
drives me crazy. And you got like on the other side, you got Mitch McConnell standing there like having whatever he's having seizures and like just stopping his speech mid speech, and it's just like, what is going on? What are we really doing here? And I feel like if retirement age is 65, it should be like that across the board for Congress too. Yeah.
Well, and probably the courts as well, right?
Oh
Having these, you know, because also, especially for the courts, right? What we saw is when they end up getting sick and kind of retiring last minute, then it doesn't. There's no planning involved, right? And then you can
Mhm.
see these drastic shifts, right? Like under Obama, and then the Republicans were like, no, they stopped his next appointment, and then that ended up, basically now for 20 years possibly we're gonna have a very conservative court. Whereas
Yeah.
if you had scheduled, okay, they retire at 65 or 70, then for sure, and it'll be much more predictable to make sure that you don't have these like drastic swings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like we need age limits and term limits. Like term limits apply to the Supreme Court as well. Like we need that. I feel like if you're a Supreme Court justice for a decade, you need to turn it over. Turn it over. 10 years is like more than enough for you to have served the highest court in the land because things change, society changes. Like things change over time. Um, so I just think that we need to always reinvent ourselves as a society. Like I think that's a good thing. But go ahead, you were about to say
Yeah,
something.
so I'm going to ask you a question. This is like one of the most common questions that people ask me, during the campaign. And it was, everyone kind of knows or sees that our government is very dysfunctional, right? So if elected, how would you get things done? How would you, bring about the policies that you're advocating for?
Well, I again, it's funny because I was kind of asked a similar question to this at our last forum, and I was saying that you have to call people out, right? I'm very good. You can ask my opponents in J12 race. I've already like called all of them out public publicly, and I've called all of them out for like jumping into the race last minute because I was like, okay, well, where were you last year when we were really fighting? Like you guys are coming into the race now talking about, oh, I'm fighting, fight against Trump, fight against Trump. But where were you last year? Where were you at the No Kings rallies last year when Trump was actually declared himself a king? Because I was there last year. So I'm good at calling stuff out. So the same smoke that I have for like the other Democrats, I'm gonna have triple that for these Republicans who are taking away your health care. I'll be like, whatever, Louisiana's fifth district. Oh, Congressman such and such just voted, so you don't have health care. You better vote them out. Like I'm good at calling people out and calling out the nonsense that they do. So I think that's how you get stuff done. You put people on blast. You know,
Okay.
you put people on blast. Like if you're gonna vote on some bullshit, like you're gonna get put on blast. That's pretty much how it is. Like I'm not. You even saw how I was when I tagged you in the post. I was like, Hakeem Jeffries and and Cory Booker need to go. Like like it is what it is. Like if you're not voting on policies that are actually going to help people and you're voting on policies that actually are going to cause harm to people, then you need to go. You do not need to be an elected official. You cannot continue to serve these corporations because the corporations do not vote for you. The people elect you. And like so if you're not doing the job for the people, then you need to go.
For sure. And I would say it's actually impossible to serve kind of these corporate elite interests and ordinary people at the same time. And that is one of the major problems that we have, making our government ineffective, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And especially, people always kind of say about the Democratic Party, how it seems so like soft and ineffectual compared to the Republicans. The Republicans are just more open in their grift, but the Democratic Party lost its base. It's supposed to be the party of the workers, but yet you can't cater to those corporate donors and the ordinary
Exactly.
workers at the same time. So they're trying to
Exactly.
like split the baby, and it's impossible. And they keep
Yeah.
coming down on the side of corporate interests.
Yeah, and that's why I say like that's why you hear so much what people say. Well, they're both sides are the same. Now, of course, I know that both sides are not the same. Obviously, because I could never vote Republican. But like the Democrats again are not like, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the conversation. They're not fighting enough. Like you're supposed to be. It's not enough to just not be as bad as the Republicans.
Right. And
Like,
exactly. I mean, I think we really we got to be careful with our analysis, right? If it was medicine, it's like cancer and heart disease are both bad, but they're totally different and they require different treatments, right? So
absolutely.
you can't just like lump the Republicans and Democrats into the same category. But there's real problems with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like there's a lot of problems and a lot of things that need to be addressed. That's why I'm inspired by how many people are challenging the establishment.
Yes.
Because I just feel like there are going to be a bunch. Like I feel like this election cycle, we are going to clean house. Like we are going to um um just pretty much clean house. Like I really feel confident about that. Whether I get elected or not, I just really feel like there's going to be a bunch of progressives that end up, getting in and changing the momentum of the Democratic Party. And I've always felt like the Democratic Party needed to reinvent itself anyway. That's why I was challenging Bonnie because,
Right.
I'm there was a 44-year age gap. There is a 44-year age gap between us,
Mhm.
and that's why I still say like I'm probably the most not probably I am. I'm the most relatable person running in the New Jersey 12 race. Like I'm like, who relates to college students better than an adjunct college professor? I teach at King University. Like I talk to students 3 days a week. Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, I'm going in there talking to college students. I know what they need. And the fact that I'm not that far removed. I graduated college in 2011. Graduated grad school in 2014. So it's not like I'm like graduated college 50 years ago either. So
So, I mean, you mentioned knowing what college students need, and one of the things that really impresses me all the time is how actually involved the young people are
yeah.
right now, and they're
Mhm.
really engaged. And some of the best questions I've gotten were down there at Rutgers, and coming out and volunteering and being engaged in the process. So, what
Yeah.
do you think that college students or that are kind of like, let's call it 18 to 25, right, are young adults? What is it that they need?
Well, they need affordability. Like they need affordability. And the things that hinder, college students and college graduates, are student loan debt. That's like one thing that I've experienced personally. Like, when my husband and I were buying this house right now, that I'm in right now, I owed $75,000 in student loan debt. And they were telling me, we how about if you're not on the mortgage? Like because your debt to income ratio was too high.
Right.
So like, and these are things that, I mean, obviously like we both own the house and I'm on a mortgage now, but these are things that if say I was a single person trying to buy a home, I wouldn't have been able to buy it.
Right.
So these are things that really hold people back, and college is too expensive. Like really, I'm a big advocate. I think college should be free. Tuition should be free. You want all of these jobs want people to have a college degree. Like it's like have a degree so we can pay you some good money, but yet spend $200,000 trying to get that degree. Why? Why?
Well, I mean, even worse, I keep hearing and seeing these stories, and I've actually experienced it myself. I've needed a job as an emergency and ended up working in an Amazon warehouse for 6 months, right?
Yeah,
And you see, I mean, you'll have nurses, and I'm sure you have some professor friends who've ended up driving Uber or doing something like that to make some extra
make
money.
some
It's
extra money.
across
Yeah,
the board. People are struggling.
yeah,
Wages just haven't kept up with
yeah, yeah.
expenses.
Yeah, and like even myself, even right now, I'm a fitness studio on our own two fitness studios, but I'm still an adjunct at college at King University. So it's like and that's me working, working and working and working. I work so many hours a week, but it's like I need that extra money at King University. Like
Right.
um, so I guess also to answer your question, another thing that I know that like younger people need is like childcare, free childcare.
Mhm.
Um, you have the average family in New Jersey is paying close to $20,000 in childcare, and you have people that that are moving closer to their parents, so that their parents can watch their kids while they go to work. And I'm like, if you're a parent, especially like Republicans are so like anti-abortion, and they want everybody to have kids, yet they don't want Head Start or early Head Start programs.
Right. I mean, they don't want to support any of the programs that fund life, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Food,
exactly,
housing, healthcare,
exactly. And then they're
supporting
racist, so
taking
they
care of the kids
yeah,
once they're born.
absolutely. And then they put their racism on top of it, so they damn sure don't give a damn if you're black and you're getting shot by the police. Yeah, so
Well,
like,
okay, so I mean that brings me to another question. Right now, I think a lot of people are focused on kind of these ICE raids and how we fix that, what we do. I mean, because I mean, and the reason it came to me right now, you mentioned it, is some of what I hear sometimes is almost like a lot of people have like woken up to ICE, like the fear of ICE being attacked in the same way that us in the black community have felt about the police for generations.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So is that your question or your comment?
That's my question to you: is how do we deal with ICE raids?
Well, ICE needs to be abolished. That's pretty much like the bottom line. Like, because right now you can't. There's no reforming ICE. Um, do we need border security? Yes, of course we do. But the problem is that no neither party has really came up with a good, and this country has never had like a really good border security process. Now, when you talk about, of course we just can't have any criminal getting, coming in from another country, right? We can't just have that. But the overwhelming majority of people that migrate to this country are really coming here for a better life. And I also feel like we need a more humane immigration system. Like, it
Yes.
can take people 20, 30 years to get their citizenship. I mean, it doesn't take them that long. I mean, honestly, if it takes them that long, then it's more of a I feel like it's more of an issue with them kind of being lazy. But we still need a immigration system that lets people come in and make it a smooth process for them to gain their citizenship, because people do want to come to America for a good quality of life, and I like we're in a country, all of the xenophobia that really bothers me, because we're in a
Mm.
country that was built by immigrants. Like, we're in a country that was mainly built by enslaved people who were brought here against their own will. So when you talk about immigrants, like, immigrants are coming here and they're doing the jobs that most of you wealthy white people wouldn't be found doing on your worst days. So it's just like so
Well, and I think also when people talk about jobs and the effect of immigration on jobs, if we stop, if we do not allow, right, if um, people are undocumented, if we have a humane process to document the people who are here so that they can no longer be exploited, that will raise wages up for everyone, right? So,
exactly.
and so that's key to that problem here.
Yeah.
Because the people who are benefiting are those construction companies, those landscaping companies, right? That they're the ones who are taking advantage of those people's labor. I'm sure you
Yeah.
saw that horrible story of that woman who had her roof done and then called ICE on the workers right after she finished to try to not to pay it. Now,
Yeah.
she ended up getting arrested, right? But that's the core concept that's happening across the country with undocumented labor every day.
Yeah, and that's so sad, man. Like, that's so sad. That's like heartbreaking to even hear stuff like that. Like, but I don't know, man. Like, it just, well, first off, like all of these things, they have to kind of go hand in hand, right? As I mentioned, we need a humane immigration system, and one that helps people gain their citizenship. But also at the same time, like I said before, we need a $20 minimum wage. So that way, when people are doing those jobs, they can be legal citizens and then be able to get a job with a $20 per hour salary, or hourly wage, hourly wage. So, all of these things, all of these policies kind of go hand in hand when we're talking about these progressive policies, and
Right.
they help people all across the board.
Right. And they circle, I'd say one of the other things about progressive policies is, everyone's aware of kind of the conservative policies. They're trickle down, right? And right. So progressive policies are bottom up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We
absolutely.
we start at the bottom, grassroots, right? We want to make sure that that base of the things that people actually really need is provided.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's a shame when you see people who are just like on the streets. Like we do my fraternity, we do a Blankets of Love event every year where we go to North Penn Station
Hmm.
and we just give people clothes. Like we give people we literally give people clothes and food who are just like homeless.
Right.
Like you
I
know
mean, I work with a church in Newark, and I have for the past few years. And the reason I work with them is because they feed people and provide clothes to those in need 6 days a week. And one of the most popular items is socks,
yeah.
right? We always need socks.
Yeah, 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 yeah. People, your extremities, you got to make sure those stay covered. That's for sure. Yeah,
Hmm.
man. But again, I just think that where we are, times are the shift is definitely changing, and I think that eventually we are going to get this country to progress the way that it should be progressing. It kind of, in a way, I kind of think that we almost, I hate to say it like that, but we almost kind of needed this because I feel like the people in this country kind of needed a wake up call. We needed, like, basically, sometimes it's like shit has to hit rock bottom before you could pick it back up. And you know we've seen worse. I mean, black people have seen worse, of course. Like, black people have been enslaved, right? So, like, we've seen worse in this country. Like, Trump is just like another bigot, but it's not like we haven't had plenty of bigots in the past. So this country can turn around. It can turn around, and I think it will turn around. um and again, we're inspired. Like, people like you and I, we inspire each other. Like, we're inspired when we see other people, like, stepping up and stepping up with progressive policies that actually just help people.
Right.
Because that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's about helping people.
For sure. And I mean, one of the things I found also incredibly inspiring, and that is like really starting to, I think, a groundswell, is we're seeing like a new wave of candidates that are just rejecting corporate PAC money outright.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and as you know, it's very difficult to then raise money from the people, right?
Very.
So you need the people's support. So
Yeah.
how can they support you? And it's you in particular.
Yeah, so, well, number one, donate. But because I feel like, because campaigns do cost a lot of money. Like, people may underestimate how much campaigns actually cost. Social media ads, those cost money. Paid canvassers, those that cost money. Lawn signs, mailers, like all of these billboards, like all of these things cost money. So that's why we're always asking, donate, donate, donate. If you don't want me, because another thing is, like, people complain about all the people who do accept corporate PAC money, which they should. Of course, you have they, but at the same time, how could if you're not donating to them, you're not really helping the problem either. You're not really, like, causing a solution. So, like, we do really need your donations. you know
For sure.
yeah,
And I think a lot of it is education as well, right? Um, just like these like early steps in the process. Like you're experiencing it now in the primary, right? So most of the people who so we're in an off year, an off presidential year election, right? So turnout statewide is probably going to be relatively low, less than half of eligible voters in November.
Yeah,
So most people are thinking, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to come out and vote in November, but you need people to come out in June,
in
right?
June.
And then
Yeah,
oftentimes in this primary process, you need people to come out and help you in January to even make sure that that you have that people have a real choice,
yeah, yeah,
right? And so
yeah.
we gotta work on that education part too. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. Because and the thing is about we could go on and on about how we want change, but how are we really going to get it if we're not out there fighting for the change? Because at the end of the day, not that I'm not going up with people who I don't have respect for, but it's the same thing. And now I'm going to call out some of my opponents. Chanel, what is she? A Somerset County Commissioner. She's a politician right now. Verlina, what is she? An Assemblywoman. She's a politician right now. They're still part of the machine. Mayor Mapp, he's a mayor right now. Mayor Brad Cohen, he's a mayor right now. It's still the political machine. So, a way for and these are people who could raise money because they already have, the establishment behind them. They already have that. Us progressive candidates, we can't. It's not that easy for us to just raise money like that. We so like when so we kind of need other people. If you're tired of like the way things are in your personal life, I would say get involved with somebody's campaign who was tired, just like you. Like I've said before, like the difference between me and every other politician is I'm broke. Like like I'm broke. I don't have money. So I'm not. I'm over here driving around a 2015 Nissan Sentra. I just don't have $1 million to put into my own campaign. So it's like but I'm fighting for better wages for you, myself, everybody. I'm fighting for quality health care. I'm fighting for quality education. Like I'm fighting for all of these things that we really want and need.
So that's why people can trust you because you need that healthcare too, right? You need the student loan forgiveness.
Hell yeah. It's like I'm you. Like the same things that you're complaining about, I'm complaining about it too. I was mad last week when I had to go put gas in my car and spend $57. I was just
Mhm.
like, yeah, yeah. I'm relatable like that. Trust me.
So you brought up the issue of gas. So I definitely want to talk about this issue because I'm sure it's on people's mind. Is this kind of the conflict in Iran,
Oh,
which is also kind of an escalation of what's been going on with Israel and Palestine. And so I guess what are your thoughts on these issues, especially for being a member of Congress, right? These matters of war and peace are essential to the job.
yeah. Well, we have to number one, cut our military spending because we're using it on senseless wars right now. The president of the United States needs to be impeached because both times where he's attacked, he's bombed Iran, it was without congressional approval.
Mhm.
So it's unconstitutional and it is doing nothing but hurting us because he's putting number one, he's endangering our safety, right? He's putting our people at wars that they don't want to be in. You know, so and it's hiring the cost of everything, like you said. Hiring gas prices, because the main reason he even bombed Iran was because of oil. It's just like it's totally ridiculous. So we definitely have to stop these endless wars. Right now our I think it was last year our military spending was $850 billion. Again, we could invest that money into healthcare, into education, into all of the things that we need. We need another policy of mine is a $25,000 grant for first time home buyers. People want to be able to buy a home, and how the price of housing is unaffordable. So we need to stop spending money on senseless wars. And with everything with Israel, I've called it out. It's a genocide, and no matter what, 70,000 people of any race or religion or any ethnic group, 70,000 people is a genocide. So if it was 70,000 Jewish people, I would still call it a genocide. But
Right.
unfortunately, it's 70,000 Palestinians in Gaza who have been killed.
Yes.
So it is a genocide. Now, I also can sympathize and empathize with Jewish people here in the United States who have really seen anti-Semitic attacks. I can recognize that the rise in anti-Semitism has increased. That there has been an increase in anti-Semitism. But at the same time, the word is starting to lose its nuance
Right.
because you're calling everybody who doesn't is not on board with the Israeli government anti-Semitic. And I'm like, that's not anti-Semitic. And
Right.
I've literally gotten in, I literally have gotten in arguments with people, like, because I'm not that politician that's just like, oh well, we always have to, oh well, we'll just, or you have to see their point of view. No, fuck that. Because if you want to call me anti-Semitic for saying that something is a genocide, like I was called anti-Semitic for saying that I wouldn't accept APAC money, and I'm like, how ridiculous is that? It's just like you can't. Oh, we call it a genocide, and now we're anti-Semitic all of a sudden. It's just,
Right.
it's,
And I mean, I think so. I did have an experience as well, right? Where I got up on stage and I blasted Booker for his accepting millions of dollars of APAC money. And someone came up to me afterwards, and they had serious concerns. Them being a member of the Jewish community themselves, right? And I told them, yes, I agree. Anti-Semitism is a very real, it's a very dangerous force in our country,
absolutely.
and we need to call it out whenever and wherever we see it. This mass blaming of the Jews. However, a criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu, his government, and the IDF, and the policies that they've committed against the Palestinian people, that is not an attack on the Jewish people or the Jewish religion.
Exactly. You have to be able to differentiate the two. Anti-Semitism is bigotry. Bigotry. Okay. So, and because I got in like a little altercation, not altercation, but yeah, like a little argument with one lady. She's like, "Oh well, unless you're Jewish, you can't tell me what anti-Semitism means." Um, which I'm not. First of all, it's just like anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jewish people. So if somebody is attacking you, or if somebody is beating you, or making derogatory comments towards you, you know, then we could consider that an attack on your community. But if somebody is just calling out a genocide that you're really doing, like my thing is like, don't try to turn it. You know,
Well, I mean, now here's the thing, though. I think that this is very like complex, and I'm struggling of how to phrase it. So please, world, I guess criticize me if you'd like. I guess this is what our politicians get,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we're gonna get
Um,
criticized no matter what. So
but I do see, I've just seen this myself, um, that there are there is a real anti-Semitic backlash that's kind of connected to these issues as well, right?
yeah,
That there is a principled, accurate criticism of what is Israel, their government, right, and their administration and military
absolutely.
is doing against the Palestinian people, and that is a
Yeah,
genocide, right?
yeah,
At the same time, this kind of background anti-Semitism is there too, and it seems to like almost draw towards the of to a same chord. Like there's also people that are criticizing Israel from an anti-Semitic place, and we've got to separate that as well,
Yeah, separate that. Yeah, absolutely.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like, all right, for instance, I have well, a former client of mine. He's Orthodox Jewish. I was actually training like a group of them, and I guess he had his yarmulke on, and he said a lady came up to him and was just like, "Oh, you're you're evil, and and I'm like, that's messed up because he was like, well, how do you know what I think? Like, so we can't get to the point where we're literally calling every Jewish person, because I have Jewish people that I love and care about. My brother-in-law is Jewish, so it's like I not every Jewish person is like on board with the Israeli government. Like I have clients that I train on a regular basis who are very critical of Netanyahu. You know, um,
Right.
so like so yeah, it is that but and I think that it just like we said earlier, like when when one person or some group of people of a certain group have an issue, automatically it becomes the whole community. And so
Yes.
we have to
And
separate that too.
yes, yes. And I mean, us, being black, I think we've experienced some of that
Experience that. Yeah.
firsthand.
Yeah.
So, I'm one for, we gotta call it out. You were saying this, and I think you are very good at this, right? At just being willing to speak that truth, even when it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Like it was so funny because I released a video when I first entered the race last year, just talking about the whole situation. And this was before any of these even before this lunatic started bombing Iran. But like just I was like, like there has to be a ceasefire in Gaza. And I said, with that being said, that does not mean that I also support Hamas, because that people will try to flip your words and change your words.
Yes.
And
And I've certainly heard that one too. And at least my response is our tax dollars are not supporting Hamas, right? They're going to military aid to commit the genocide. That's
exactly,
that's what we need to stop in Congress.
exactly. And I cannot, just as a person, as a logical human being with integrity, I cannot sit there and be proud of my country sending aid to, the state of Israel to commit this genocide. I mean, it just is, like Israel, first of all, Israel has enough weapons of mass destruction themselves. They don't need any more money from us. Now I know the US, the United States and Israel had been in bed with each other for a very long time. I know that, but when Israel is committing genocide, it is time to distance ourselves from that situation. Like especially when, again, we need help here. Our people need help here. Now I've spoken to, some staunch, I guess Zionists that are like, "Oh, well, why are you so passionate about Israel? Why are you so passionate about Israel?" And I'm like, I'm more passionate about people in New Jersey's 12th congressional district. I didn't get into this race to fight for Israel. That's for sure what I did not do. Um, but like now I also think I've also heard from some Jewish people, some Jewish constituents, do you believe that Israel has the right to exist? And I said, of course they have the right to exist. Israel has the right to exist. Palestine has the right to exist. Like everybody has the right to exist across the world. She was like, "Oh, well, some of your fellow progressives don't think so." And I was like, "Well, like that can be an issue too. If people think that the state, I don't think that anybody should be demolished, or I think that I want peace. Like that's the main thing I want. I want peace, and I don't want war. And that's all we're in. And right now, you can't deny the fact that, again, Israel is still committing genocide. Like
Right.
still currently committing genocide. with U.S. support. So it's just it's sick, man. It's sick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am very buoyed by it seems, the people of New Jersey are on board with stopping that support.
Oh
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and what the path forward to peace looks like, it seems like that's still going to have to be negotiated and worked out. But the people support it. Now we just need to get the right representatives into Congress, right? So that way they can carry out our will.
Yeah, yeah. Now I am glad that the majority of us in the New Jersey 12 race, like we all, like the overwhelming majority of us want to stop the aid to Israel.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't even call it aid at this point. Honestly, I wouldn't call it aid. I'm like that's not necessarily aid, but we want to stop that funding to Israel,
Right.
and we recognize that it is a genocide. I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, like you tell me if it's not a genocide, you give me another name for it then, because I don't see how. Or what's a number for it to be a genocide for you? What's a number for it? Is it a 500,000 people? Like how many people do you need to be killed for you to call it a genocide? Because to me, no matter what, 70,000 people is a bit of a genocide there.
Yeah. And so, okay. So let me ask you about another story. At least this is like been a major one that's been coming across my feed. Um, and I was actually like startled by the fact that this seems to be legal, or at least I haven't heard them stop it. But this like the website of they were saying, millions of men, and it was like this academy talking about, basically sexual assault and videos like that of being popular on the internet. And um yeah, and I guess this also will connect to kind of the Epstein files and just the overall problem of sexual violence and assault that we seem to have as a country, as a society.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show the misogyny. How the sexual violence towards women has always just been accepted. And we it's sick, and it's honestly it's unacceptable. Like people have to get called out, and I mean we've just even like we've been in young men in high school, growing up in high school, and college and stuff like that. It's like the more girls you get, the more like the more popular you are, or the more.
Right. That is a very classic kind of patriarchal idea, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's one that we need to push back against, right? Wherever we see it, this patriarchy stuff, not
yeah,
only is it like absolutely deadly and harmful to women, it hurts men too. It and boys.
yeah, yeah,
Um, honestly, I see this often as well. Is that our young men and boys can be in these situations where they themselves are the victim and don't even realize it because
yeah,
of,
yeah,
of how patriarchal it kind of creates this blind spot in them.
yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like you reminded me of the rapper Boozy. You know Boozy, right? And
Yes,
he was saying that he let a female perform oral sex on
yes.
his son because he didn't want his son to be gay.
Which is I mean both homophobic, and that's a form of sexual assault as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm like, that's literally statutory rape. With if you have a grown woman performing oral sex on your teenage son.
Right. Well, and Brucey himself was involved in this as well. But
Yeah,
yes, these situations are too common, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
we need to stop this madness.
yeah, yeah. It's sick.
Because it is, and it's hurting people. And I know for me, um one thing I guess I really just like want to get across that's clear is we as a society do not need to we need to all of our smoke and criticism needs to go for the predators, right? Too often we go after the victims and people want to defend the victimizers,
Yeah,
and we need to stop that.
yeah,
um
and I've and the crazy part about it is I've even heard women like criticizing other women and for these things. You know, like if a woman comes out about sexual, you know, her being a victim of sexual assault or whatever, like I've heard other women, well, why is she just saying it now, or why, you know, it's just like,
and the reason is because the victims are often attacked and they're criticized. And even when people do come forward, it's a tiny fraction of these cases where they actually end in convictions. And the cost of coming forward is very reputationally high for victims. And like I mentioned before, oftentimes there's a lot of trauma and emotions that need to be unpacked, and it's a
absolutely,
real act of courage for these for victims, survivors to be able to come forward whenever they feel like they do. And
yeah,
the chances of people coming forward and making false accusations, it's almost zero. And the drastic majority of cases are never reported at all. So
yeah, yeah.
we really need to, our default mode needs to be to believe and create a system that supports and encourages people to come forward where they can get justice and support.
And a lot of times people are sexually assaulted by like a member of their own family. You know, yeah, people, and I mean, I've had that happen in my family. So like, I know, you know, like that those things go down, and people just keep it on a hush hush and allow it, and it's unacceptable. Like we always have to address those things and make people know. Like I feel like parent, I'm not a parent, right? But I feel like if you are a parent, let your kids know that they could come to you. You know, like make them feel comfortable enough to come to you. It or that they won't get in trouble if they were to tell something that happened to them. Because, you know, like that stuff ends up playing a role in people's lives, and having like a drastic, you know, effect on people's lives and their upbringing. And it's just it is not a good way to go to have to live.
Yeah, well, I think we would need to, as a society, like really come together and have a better system to support people who do come forward. Because as you mentioned, in these cases of family, if someone's a kid and they come forward, right? Unfortunately, our child protective system is one of the most dangerous places for young people, right? Like, where is the option for people to really be protected when they do come forward and they're in this situation where their life is entangled with that abuser?
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't we don't have a lot of good options in
yeah,
these
exactly,
scenarios.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think increasing those is something that we should certainly work on.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. You know, like people need those resources. That brings me to another another policy of mine, I guess. So another policy of mine is that I would like to see a mental health facility in every single neighborhood across this country. Because people are struggling with mental health issues, and the thing about people about mental health that people take for granted is that people could look just like you and I. You could look at us, see smiles on our faces, you know, say hello, goodbye. Meanwhile, you never know what people are dealing with on the inside. You know, people are dealing with anxiety, people are dealing with depression, people are dealing with all sorts of you know, I guess mental disorders and mental disabilities that we don't even that we just take for granted. So we really need these mental health facilities in every neighborhood, you know. And I just think that be a big benefit to our society. And this is something that you don't even necessarily need the federal government to do. I mean, like people, if people just gathered in their own communities and, put money into building a mental health facility in their own communities, that could be done.
Well, I mean, I think that's something. Mental health is something that really needs to be a part of universal health care, and
Oh, yeah.
and that's what we got to work towards, right? Because
Yeah.
the worst part about our current system is we're already paying for it, right? When someone ends up, they can't afford care, and then they end up going to the emergency room, and they get hit with that $500,000 bill. That just gets spread across the system. It would the only people who are profiting now are these insurance companies and big pharma that's somehow able to charge us 3 to 5 times the price as just across the border in Canada.
Yeah, 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 man. Yeah. It's crazy how these insurance companies and these healthcare systems, like, they just go bank on us. I mean, like, they make bank on us.
For sure.
Yeah, man. But like, again, all of these policies are really going to be beneficial to people. Like, we just have to get the right people in office to get these policies implemented. And I really think, like, there's always going to be pushback. People always say, "Oh, well, progressive policies harm us," and all of that. But when we really break down these policies and explain them to people and how they're actually going to benefit people's lives, I think that they're going to be very popular. Like, they're going
Yeah.
to be very popular.
I mean, so one of the classic ones is it's kind of in how they ask the question, right? So for universal health care, if you ask people, should the government pay to make sure that everyone has health care? And overwhelmingly the majority of Americans say yeah, right? But if they ask the question, should the government control your health care? Then people are like, no, no.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's
um,
what's happening. It's like that's what's happening. The government is controlling our health care.
Well, and the insurance companies, which are even worse, right? They're
Yeah,
just for straight up profit when they deny someone the care they need, or I saw this horrible story the other day. This doctor was on the phone with the insurance company. This man had his hand cut off. He had half an hour for them to reattach his hand. Insurance said they weren't going to pay for it because it wasn't his dominant hand.
what?
Yes.
Wow, wow, that's crazy. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, man. Like,
And that's an extreme example, but I mean, I'm sure you've talked to people out in your travels of New Jersey of people not getting the medicine, not being able to see the doctor they want to see, and that's all under our current system is
yeah.
very flawed and broken.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I've experienced it, and this is a light problem, like, very very light problem. But so through my fitness facility, supposedly supposedly now Isolation Fitness, my company is affiliate with United Healthcare, so people are supposed to be able to use United Healthcare, their insurance, and come into my facility and take classes, and United Healthcare is supposed to pay me for the classes. I have never once. They've denied every single claim.
Oh wow.
So, yes. So, obviously, I would never condone anybody being shot. But when the United Healthcare guy did get shot, I was like, well, I'm not really surprised
Right.
because,
I mean, what they're doing is violence, right? It is violence to, for some dollars, tell a grandmother that she shouldn't have access to medication that could save her life.
exactly, exactly. That's killing people too. Like, that's killing people. So even though, okay, you didn't shoot her and kill her, you denied medicine to save her life. So again, it is violence, whether it's blatant violence or not. It's still violence, like you said.
Right. So, I mean, I think most people really have a very clear understanding of physical violence. but a lot of times their understanding of symbolic violence and systemic violence is not as clear, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
another study, here's another kind of example of symbolic violence that happens all the time. Um, so they had these it was like kindergarten or elementary school teachers, right? And you had these four kids like playing on video, and they're asking the teachers to watch the kids and tell them uh watch for misbehavior, right? And so there's four kids. There's a black girl and a black boy, a white boy, and a white girl. And so essentially, all the teacher's eyes were primarily focused on the young black boy. None of the kids committed any problems. There was no problematic behavior. The point of the
Hmm.
study was to watch who the teacher's watching, but that level of extra scrutiny, right, is an example of symbolic violence, and you see how it plays out across our society
Yeah,
in many ways.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's for sure, man. For sure. And I mean, you know, that's just generations and generations of the system and the systemic racism. I honestly, like, it's just we are and I can say all of us, we all are brainwashed in some way to have these biases, you
Right.
know, built into us.
Because I mean that study primarily, right? You're talking about young kids. It was primarily women were the teachers, right? And there was plenty of black teachers in this study as well, and they still, you know, put primarily their focus when none of the kids were misbehaving on the young black boy, right? Like
Yeah,
that idea is so like it's so like deeply promoted that people who really mean well and are conscious still struggle with it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even we, like, I sometimes, like, and I've had to learn and to educate myself, and even like call, like, sometimes I'll even, of course I would never like say it out loud, but I've even had to like change my thought process of somebody who may like look uh intimidating, more intimidating, and be black. I've had to
Mhm.
change that in myself sometimes. um
Yeah, I mean, I think I was really like, wasn't it? Well, you know how like in recent years, this idea of like kind of being like anti-racist or anti-sexist, right? That it's not enough to say I'm not whatever the bad thing is, right? I do agree that we need to, and I myself, right, do my best to engage in this process, like to be actively aware to kind of like counter. It's not just like um treating everyone equally, right? Like sometimes you've got to realize when someone might be in a vulnerable situation and be proactive to be able to protect or be extra aware. And I know for myself, and this happens often, even now, right? As a straight guy, women in my life, some of my friends who are members of the LGBTQ community will have something happen right in front of me, and I just will not recognize it until they like mention it, and I'll be like, yeah, that was really effed up. But right,
yeah,
I have blind spots. I think we all have blind
yeah, we
spots,
have we
so
have these
we got
blind
to work
spots.
on that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because I had to, again, I'm very really firm in my beliefs and everything like that. So this was maybe like at the end of last year. Raz Baraka and I kind of had like a little back and forth in the middle of Shiloh Baptist Church in Plainfield, because right now we have a black agenda in the state of New Jersey. Um
Okay. I remember he was working on it. I didn't know, or he was one of the people involved in working on it. I didn't know it got finalized though.
Yeah, well, he's like the pioneer of it, and then of course, like, he's gotten a lot of the black leaders and the other black elected officials across the state to, kind of have these panels with him. But he's always like been like the head of it, and but they've gotten these concerns from black people all across the state, And one of the protections in there was protections for the Black LGBTQ community. And of course, and at the time, like two of the people on the panel, they're of course, Mayor Mapp is up there and Valina Reynolds Jackson is up there because they're already elected officials. But I'm there as like a guest or whatever, and I was sitting there. I was like, this is on a program right now, but I wonder if they're actually going to address this out loud. And of course, they
Right.
did not. Right. So then I stood up because as a black gay man, I know that there's other protections that my community needs. Not only as
Mhm.
a black man, because yes, I'm a black man and I have to deal with the same racism that all of you have to deal with. It's like my ancestors were enslaved just like yours. But we have to deal with bigotry even coming from our own people sometimes. Coming from and so that was another reason why I even entered the race, for Congress because I want to address homophobia. Not that homophobia doesn't go down with every community, but I want to address homophobia within the black community because I am a black man. And sometimes it just feels like we as black LGBTQ people, are seen as less than even more, because now we've been, kicked out of our own homes or beat up by our own family members or
Yes.
or told we're going to hell, like I'm just get, and I'm honestly seeing like the progress within the black church, little by little, but I'm seeing the progress within the black church because for a long time I did not feel comfortable going to church anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because my pastor of my old church was very homophobic, so but but then you'll complain that, oh well, people aren't coming to church anymore, but yet how does that make people feel comfortable coming to church, if you're
Right.
literally, if every other sermon you're over there preaching how certain people are going to hell or how certain people are an abomination.
Exactly. And bigotry spreads, right?
Yeah,
It's not, you can't, you know, I think this is one of the things that people miss all the time is like they can find these excuses to be like, oh well, it's not me, right? It's this group, it's that group. But if we allow it anywhere, it spreads like that.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
nature.
and that's why like we like people, and I even tell this like as straight black people or straight people in general, like you have, if you see it, you have to call it out too. Like it's not
Yes.
enough to just be like, okay, well, I'm not the one being homophobic. You have to call it out for what it is because literally it ends up so it ends up backfiring on all of us because he was the exact situation with Raz Baraka and I. So I got up and I stood up. I said, you bringing up those 20% of black men who did actually go vote for Donald Trump, right? I said, a lot of these black men who did vote for Donald Trump, um, voted for him because of their issues with the LGBTQ community, and
Mm.
um, and and so Raz Baraka's like, I was like, but you see what happens now when black people are homophobic, it ends up backfiring on all of us. I said because now we have a white supremacist in the White House, and Lamonica McGyver was up there on the panel too. And I said, and I pointed right at her. I was like, now she's brought up on charges by the Trump administration. I said, now you have over 300,000 black women who are now unemployed due to Donald Trump and his policies. So again, it ends up backfiring on us because you guys wanted to go vote for a white supremacist based on your issues with the LGBTQ community, a community that has no effect on your life. What it if someone is transgender? What the hell does it have to do with you? Like it's just like why?
Well, I mean, it does though. You just like brought up that connection. If we allow the transgender community, the LGBTQ plus community, the Black community, the Hispanic, Latino community, if we allow women, any group, if we allow them to get picked on, right, then it will spread, and then it'll start affecting all of us, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
this is just how it works. This is why we've got to be so. I mean, this has kind of come across a lot of our issues back when we were talking about Palestine and Israel, right? Um,
Hmm.
like we got to be able to make these distinctions and call out the injustice wherever we see it
Yeah,
across the
yeah,
board.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, but listen, it's almost 10 o'clock.
I know we've just been going on, and Kyle, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, we got a lot of content, man. Like we got probably got about 10 different videos that we can put up with this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'm glad we did this, and I look forward to putting it out in the next little while here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna here. Let me see if I can
Is there
invite.
something you want to like close on?
Oh, yes. So, everybody, I want to tell everybody, go to www.kylelittleforcongress.com. Another policy that I have that separates me is my Trenton revitalization policy, which is, I want to revitalize Trenton because it's the capital of our state. And when you go to Trenton, you see the systemic racism that's there. It's a predominantly Black and Hispanic city, and we need to invest in it, and that's one thing that I want to do when I'm elected to Congress is number one, get things in from on the federal side, but I want to work with Governor Mikey Sherrill, being that a lot of a lot of people of color voted for her, and I want her to invest in the city of Trenton. She needs to invest in Black and Hispanic owned businesses. You still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, she needs to invest in Black and Hispanic owned businesses. And that way we can revitalize the city without displacing the people there. We don't want to gentrify it and just get all the Black and Hispanic people to move out of the city of Trenton. We want to build up the city for the people that already live there. We want to get better hospitals and healthcare facilities into Trenton. We want to invest in the school systems down there and invest in their education system. So that's what that's one policy of mine. And I want to see like Trenton, like, if you go to another capital, if you go to Austin, Texas is popping. If you go to Nashville, Tennessee, you could be proud of that. I want to see Trenton. I want to be able to go to a soul food restaurant and then go down the street and go to a nice Mexican restaurant. Like that's what I want to see. With a vibrant nightlife. Like where people could go there and actually have fun. But right now, our capital is nothing that we're proud of. So that's one thing I want to do. Also, I am another city that's in my district is Plainfield. I want to see a Black Wall Street in Plainfield, New Jersey. Like I want to see that a Black Wall Street in Plainfield, New Jersey. We talk about being progressive. Again, Governor Mikey Sherrill, she could get it done because I'm a Black business owner. I work with the NJEDA all the time. She could put money the NJEDA specifically for building Black businesses. So that's another thing that I want to do. And I also vow that when elected to Congress, I'm going to donate $500 of my own money each month to a local New Jersey charity. Just because I feel that that's something that I want to do. It's about giving back. It's about Congress is not all being in Congress. It should not be all about you. It should be about you giving back to your community. So I think $500 a month is like the least I could do to give back to a local charity here in New Jersey.
Well, Kyle, thank you. I'm incredibly proud to and happy that we had this conversation together. And I look forward to talking to you more. I'm sure we will as we progress. And also, I just want to tell everyone, right? This June 2nd primary is going to come like real quick.
We're
And
6
so we need people to get out and support our progressive candidates right now, right? They
Absolutely.
need donations, they need volunteers, they need all of us to really come together and get involved if we want to see the change, the progressive bottom up grassroots change that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. All right, man. Well, it was great talking to you, and yet we will definitely have some more conversations in the near future.
Yep, sounds good. Take care.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.